Hey everybody, welcome back to Reach Out Reptiles. My name is Garrett Hartle, and in this week's video, I want to spend the whole time talking about probably my favorite morph in reticulated pythons, which is Anerythristic, just like this girl. Check her out. Okay, so the Anerythristic gene, or Anery for short, was actually derived from dwarf and super dwarf populations. This is a color mutation that is somewhat like a xanthic, which means lacking yellow pigment, but the Anerythristic actually sucks the red pigments out. So it does leave behind kind of a greenish tone. I don't know if you can see this. So when the Anery gene removes all the red from the typical browns that a reticulated python has, it's gonna pull from the tan browns on top, it turns them into like almost like a chrome grayish blue color. And then the base color, where it's normally a yellowy gold, turns into a greenish, almost like a green highlighter color. So it really tweaks the color. It makes for a lot of sort of unnatural looking color tones, especially in combinations. The further you tweak it into these unnatural color tones, the more and more interesting it gets. And probably my favorite thing about Anery's, one that never shows in pictures, removing that layer of red pigment gives an almost translucent look to the snake. Doesn't it, girl? Yes, it does. You are so cute. Anyway, I wanted to go ahead and give you guys a little bit of a tour of our collection. Anery is really highly represented here at Reach Out Reptiles just because I love it so much. It's kind of my personal favorite. Let's dig in and check out some Anerys. Come on. So coming into the reptile room, probably the best place to start is where it all started. And that would be with the pure dwarf and super dwarf animals from the islands in our Super Dwarf Morphs Don't Exist video, if you want to watch that. But they are all from the subspecies Malayopython, reticulatus, jampeanus. This guy is a Calatoa. It's a full-grown adult breeder male. He was wild caught, brought in years ago, hasn't grown since, and he's about 1,600 grams. If we step outside, we can kind of take a better look at his color in the natural light. You'll see what I mean. Now, animals like this will sometimes be assumed to be Anery, and I've seen it over the years within the super dwarf trade that people will have an animal like this and sell the babies as 100% het Anerys, just based on the fact that the wild-caught adult animal was very silver. But this locality tends to be a very silver, gravelly locality anyways. And just because an animal looks silver does not mean that it carries the Anerythristic gene. A heterozygous for Anery, or an animal that had one Anery parent and it carries the gene but doesn't show it, can actually throw the colors a little bit. You know, in carpet pythons, they're actually calling the axanthic an incomplete dominant gene. It actually works the same way in the reticulated pythons. The only reason why I would hesitate to call it incomplete dominant is because I would hate to try to guess between the hets in any given clutch. Within these wild type animals is where this Anerythristic gene actually began, and honestly that Anery look is kind of this exclusive look that dwarf and super dwarf breeders have been chasing for decades. It's probably a big part of the reason why this happens to be one of my favorite genetic mutations, because it's a wild occurring, beautiful type that just really gets me going. Let's go back inside and hit the racks and take a look at what we could actually do with this gene if we start to put it together with different color and pattern combinations. So if we start out by looking at a baby hatchling dwarf or super dwarf cross, you're going to see that that black dorsal pattern is kind of surrounded by an orangey brown color that extends down to those silver side flames. This is the area of the pattern that the Anery gene is going to affect the most. Now, as a normal retic grows, those brown colors begin to develop into a much nicer, brighter gold. This is no average super dwarf cross though. This might actually be my favorite Super Dwarf that I produced in 2018 from that white diamond line. So she's just super clean and beautiful. Yes, you're my favorite. Yes, you are. Probably the best way to see how that area of the pattern is affected by the Anery gene is to compare hatchlings from the same clutch side by side. Okay, so here we have an Anery and a normal, both possible het snows, which we'll get to later. Now, because Anery is not as extreme as, say, an albino, it tends to get underrated because at first glance from far back, you might not think that they look that different. But as a breeder that sort of visualizes future generations and combinations, it's really going to help you out a lot if you can kind of dive in and understand exactly what changes this Anery gene brings into the animal. So take a look at these guys up a little bit closer. Okay, so when you place these down side by side, we have the Anery on top, here the normal at the bottom. You can see those saddles are so tan on the normal, whereas on the Anery, they're quite different. The saddle is going to be the lighter top pattern, and they'll have a highlight around the inside of that black, but in between that, it just drops off into a really dramatic chrome, metallic, very dark gray, sometimes almost a purpley color. On the side pattern, you're going to see even more of a difference. Like I said, where it is tan and yellow-orange over those silver side flames with the normal on the bottom, the Anery on top is going to be green, almost like a lime green or a military green. In different animals, you're going to have different color tones, so you get to play with that a lot. So this baby is a very dark one, and so any of the greens brought out are going to be kind of like an olive drab. This is stuff that we get to play with as breeders when they start to get older. One of the other dramatic differences is kind of this translucence over the animal, as well as the actual eye color itself being affected. You can see here the eyes are almost white with a black highlight around them. And compared to the normal, which has a very orangey eye, it's pretty dramatic. Now that translucence I was talking about, I've actually heard that pythons are not capable of producing red pigment. I don't know how true that is, but it's more supposedly about the way the light refracts. So the theory on Anerythristic would be that it's actually a semi-translucent animal, which is kind of like looking through tinted glass. Now traditionally, a lot of people have always said they want the colorless Anerys, much like this girl. She doesn't have very much of the portion of the pattern with that color to change, and so what you're going to get are those charcoal grays, and that's a beautiful look. But as a selective breeder, you want to be able to choose certain animals for certain projects. So take a look at this adult female's sister. This girl actually has a lot more reduced black and a larger area down the sides of that pigmented area. This might be probably my favorite look in Anerys for using with color and pattern combinations. Not colorless, but actually bringing out colors that you don't see on other reticulated pythons anywhere. I would love to see this girl in something like a platinum, for example, which would add even more, or potentially a sunfire, any of these color combinations. Could you imagine the colors of this girl bred into something like, I don't know, orange ghost stripe? Now that we've defined the gene for you, what I really want to do is get into some progressively complicated color and pattern mutations. I don't have a ton to show you for this because, in all honesty, Anerythristic is still in its infancy. It really has not been developed as much as a lot of, say, the mainland morphs are. And that's probably just due to the rarity of the dwarf and super dwarf stuff in general, especially when it comes to this recessive gene within those populations. Starting with the most basic pattern mutation we have, the one that's been around the longest, we'll go with the tiger, which stripes the pattern out, but it does add a lot of contrast. And what that does is lighten and brighten those chrome metallic background colors that we see. If you breed away from a dark one like this baby into a light bloodline like we showed earlier, you can really get some awesome results with fantastic contrast between the black borders of the animal, those amazing green highlights in the background. Look at that eye, it's almost a lilac purple, which basically matches the top saddle pattern. So you're getting a mix of blue and purple tones over top of those beautiful lime greens. Super Tiger will take it even further, casting that very light lime green wash over almost the entire animal, leaving only the belly and side rosettes to be a brilliant white color with bold black outlines. And as you can see, this is no ordinary Super Tiger, but Obviously, the bloodline that produced this animal really lends itself well to having the most color and contrast. In this particular case, she's a Jampea animal, and that locality tends to be the cleanest with the brightest color and contrast of any of the animals from that jampeanus complex. There's a few others too. Anery looks good with Anery Golden Child. Of course, there's the Anery Motley. Those look nice together when you make an Anery Motley Golden Child. Or you could just put the Anery with a Motley Tiger. Maybe do Anery Motley Super Tiger? How about Anery Motley Golden Child Tiger? Or Anery Super Motley Super Tiger? There's always the classic Anery Platinum. Or, maybe an Anery Sun Tiger. Or Anery Sunfire Super Tiger, which grow up really nice. But like I said, it's still in its infancy. Now that we've covered kind of the normal range that the Anery affects, what would happen if we took an albino like this with all of that orange in the pattern and just sucked it right out? It's actually called a snow, and it's one of the projects that we love working on here. So this is actually the white diamond male. He has just an exquisite pattern that I've selected to be breeding with. I remember this guy from when I was actually working back at Prehistoric Pets, and the Anery gene was first proven to be recessive about a decade ago.
Here we got an update on our Super Dwarf Snow. This is the only male that we'll ever have been able to offer for sale to date. Starting asking price right around $25,000. And you can see he's a purple phase Clark albino, bred to a new morph that we originated here, an Anerythristic.
And taking this really unique color palette and pattern that this guy has, breeding it selectively to ever smaller super dwarfs, as well as adding some really interesting color and pattern mutations, has been one of the major focuses of Reach Out Reptiles. Let's take a look at a couple more examples so you can see what I mean. See this orangey, kind of faded out animal on top? That's actually going to be a purple albino super tiger. And underneath her is the yellowy green snow super tiger. You can see the tonal change within that color. Now, in other snow morph examples, it may be more extreme. Here's a snow Motley tiger, and you'll see portions of the pattern are just brilliant, glowing, almost a pearlescent white. And seeing the natural iridescence that a retic has over a pearly white, like on the head and the top part of this Motley tiger pattern, is just amazing. Here to the right, we have a normal Motley snow, and to the left is that Motley tiger snow. Now, a purple albino golden child is probably one of the most famous of all reticulated python combos, and they're quite rare in dwarf and super dwarf varieties. But rarer still, in fact only a handful have ever been made, are the snow golden childs. Now, in this day and age, the snow golden child is about as far as we've come as far as pattern mutations, which is a pretty fun one, and it's really a great one for kind of your high-level investors. But starting out when they first hatch, without any of this green color that they develop as they grow, they're actually like a bone white with nothing but that purple pattern going down the back. And you can see as this boy has gotten a little bit older, now he's starting to have some of that really like highlighter green wash over the sides with that dark pattern. It's really exciting to think about the future of the snow projects. And one of the biggest drives that I would like to see pushed in this, whether or not you like the golden child pattern or any of the other pattern mutations, I would like to see that background get even lighter and the dorsal pattern get even darker. So I think the future is actually going to be breeding some of these new T-positive lines of albino into the Anery gene. Think about things like the Mochino. We actually have a few of the first made Super Dwarf Mochinos here at Reach Out Reptiles, and they are possible het snow. So hopefully when these females come of age, we'll be able to actually see that bone white background pattern with an almost black pattern that the Mochino stuff hatches out with. Pretty exciting times for the Anery gene, really. A lot of people don't realize how long-term these projects are, but these animals here are a good example of what's to come in the future of dwarf and super dwarf snow projects. These animals were created by breeding an Indo-Caramel Motley to a pure visual Anery Jampea female. This should ensure that they have the small size of that 10 or 11 foot female with all of the amazing color genetics provided by the male. So not only are these the first time you will find that caramel gene, which bred to albinos makes orange glows, in a dwarf or super dwarf, but they are also the first time that that caramel gene has been crossed into the Anery gene. Breeding a pair of these together should give you that elusive 1 in 16 chance of creating the very first caramel snows. So it's a fairly subtle gene, but the changes that it does make, especially in combinations with good selective breeding, really makes a huge difference, as you just saw in some of the combinations that are possible out there. Well, that's it for us this week, guys. I hope you have an awesome weekend, and we will catch you next time.
Hold on, wait 1 minute, don't go just yet. I need to tell you something. We will be at the NARBC show in Tinley Park in a couple of weeks. Every Saturday night they have a charity auction. I want to show you what we're going to donate. Garrett is friends with Mag over at Punk Your Chucks. You can check out his YouTube channel there or in the description below. If you win the auction, you will win your own pair of custom shoes with whatever you want in your own size. So good luck. See you guys there.